But we're able to buy with the power of over 14,000 restaurants when it comes to chicken and beef and lettuce and restaurant equipment and all of that. So that's really is a big advantage that, quite frankly, folks coming into the system didn't really realize, which I understand.
Hey there. Thanks for joining me and welcome back to the podcast. It's about a chain that's been around for over 100 years that serves burgers and comfort food. It's known for its car hop service and, of course, frosty cold mugs of root beer. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, so I can't wait to bring you this episode. So much to learn. Thanks also to the sponsors of this week. That's Works, Pop Menu, The Birthday Club, and Serve, the restaurant training app. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this one.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Restaurant owners and managers, listen, this is important. If you haven't heard of the Employer Retention Credit, your business can receive lots of money back from the IRS, money you've already paid in payroll taxes. Now, the ERC program, as it's known, is available if your operation had fewer than 500 employees, you had to shut down or partially suspend your business, or you had at least a 20% reduction in business due to COVID-19 in any quarter of 2020 and the first 3 quarters of 2021. Now, how much is the credit? Up to $7,000 back per employee per quarter for 2021 and up to $5,000 per employee in 2020. Listen, if you have 10 employees today and meet the requirements, you could receive up to $260,000 back in a refundable tax credit. Now, the faster you apply, the faster you get the cash. Think of it as found money that you can use for any purpose: payroll, cost of goods, business improvement, or other business expenses. Again, best of all, you do not need to pay this money back. Now, Works is a company that will do all the heavy lifting for you and get your business back the money that's due. I'm speaking from experience here with Works. I received a sizable amount back in all available quarters from my former restaurant, and I couldn't be more pleased with their service, their people, and their process. For a no-obligation consult, click the link for Works in the show notes to this episode. Don't miss out. Get your consult today. Rockstars. Restaurants have been hit hard the last few years, which means restaurant owners and staff are working harder than ever. Trying to meet the demands of in-person hospitality can be really demanding, which is why I recommend Pop Menu Answering. Pop Menu Answering turns every phone call into an opportunity. It uses artificial intelligence to answer the simple questions that are tying up your phone lines, like, can I make a reservation? Or, where are you located? And over 50% of restaurant guests are happy to have their questions answered by an automated system. Within the Pop Menu platform, you can customize answers for your restaurant and choose the voice your guests hear, and even send follow-up links via text message. Pop Menu Answering picks up your phone 24/7, 365 days a year, allowing you and your team to focus on what matters most: pleasing your guests. Prevent lost customers and impress your guests with Pop Menu Answering. And for a limited time, my listeners can get $100 off their first month, plus lock in one unchanging monthly rate at popmenu.com/rockstars. Go now to get $100 off your first month and learn more about Pop Menu's full collection of tools at popmenu.com/rockstars. Rock on. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. With me today, Mr. John Palumbo. He is the Senior Director of Franchise Operations for that iconic classic American chain, A&W Root Beer. Welcome to the show, John. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Roger. Thanks for having me.
So I think you're making all of us hungry because the background, first of all, is like really beautiful, and the root beer is right there. And we could just like dive on into your background right now because I don't know, my audience is all over the world, but it's lunchtime where I am. So anyway, it brings me back because, you know, as a kid growing up in Western Massachusetts, A&W is definitely a staple in our family. And back then they had the car hop service, you know, with the trays in the windows and the frosty cold mugs of root beer and the burgers. And it really, really brings me back, even though that was so many decades ago. And yet this iconic brand, you know, it just continues 100+ years later. So we're going to talk all about what makes the brand special and, what's changed over years, what's the same. But let's start with how you got into this business. Everyone's got a story. What's yours, John?
Yeah. So thank you. And I feel like I'm over 100 years old sometimes, by the way, myself. But my family, I'm a Brooklyn kid, born and raised. We had pizzeria restaurants growing up all through my life. And so when there was, home from the summers at high school or back from college, I was in the restaurants working. And so it's funny to realize my career is in restaurants and in food, but it's in a franchise model side versus an independent, restaurateur, so to speak. I kind of always thought that was maybe my path. Mm-hmm. I played baseball for a long time, post high school as well, and I realized I wasn't going to play for the Mets, although there were years where I probably could have.
No kidding. So you were serious about it?
I was. The other folks weren't.
They weren't serious about you. You were serious about them.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So when I graduated, I went into the college. I went into the sports and recreation industry. I ran not-for-profit and for-profit recreation centers, community centers, private health clubs. And then out of nowhere, we had some restaurant space that was available in one of the clubs I was managing. And it wasn't being used. And I said, well, wow, what a great opportunity to utilize some of this restaurant and juice bar space as an accommodation for our members and another profit revenue center. And so I started requesting RFPs from franchisors, actually. And it was sort of my first segue into franchising and going through the RFP process and talking to different franchisors. I realized what made franchisors good, what made them, maybe not as good. Learned about support mechanisms and all that kind of stuff. And from there, that was my first real experience with franchising and franchise food. And so quite literally, I got to know the franchisor who came into our club and used and rented out that leased that restaurant space. And I became very friendly with them. And they said, hey, you really should be in franchise development. And I said, well, what is that? Sales? I don't do sales. And he's like, well, everybody does sales. And I said, well, I just develop stuff and I, build relationships. Long story short, I started my career, moved out to Arizona, just had my first child at the time. And I was off and running in franchise food. Who knew? And here I am 20 years later, still in it.
So it started with pizzerias, huh?
It did.
Wow.
Pizzerias.
Well, it's funny because I never thought I'd be in the restaurant business as a young guy out of college. And, going into graduate school years later, I had an opportunity to live in Italy. And then all of a sudden this pizza thing just came out of nowhere. And I just started eating wood-fired pizza on every street corner for 2 months, And then when I came back and graduated, it's like I came up with this idea wow, wood-fired brick oven pizza, more sophisticated concept. And I started my first restaurant with no restaurant experience, but it was a pizza concept. And that led to everything else. The whole hospitality thing went from there. So that's cool that we share that in common. Let's talk about the history of A&W, because everyone listening knows of A&W. Maybe they have one nearby. Maybe they have memories like I do of being a kid and what that really meant. So there's an aura around the brand, and it's definitely that apple pie, classic baseball, Americana feeling, at least for me. That's what I get. But tell us about the history and tell us about what the brand means to you and, new franchisees that are coming into the fold. It's like, what's the aura of that brand that I'm trying to describe? That's not just my own feeling, Tell us about what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, what's really cool about this brand is everyone we get to talk to, and what I do every day, my team does, we talk to folks who are looking to gain entry into the system. And it usually one of these initial conversations will start with, hey, I used to go to an A&W, or I remember the root beer float, or some kind of real connection to this brand emotionally.
Yes.
And so it's just so cool because I get to learn a little bit about folks' perspective, quite honestly, a few times a week from different people. And so yes, it is definitely a brand that people gravitate towards and have this emotional connection to. Started over 100 years ago. It started with the root beer stand in California. We started franchising from that root beer stand, in the mid-20s. Quite crazy to say, right? Mid-20s. It's just, literally years after we launched it. Still, we like to say we're the original craft beverage because that root beer was made fresh in that root beer stand, over 100 years ago. And we opened up a new restaurant in Arnold, Missouri this week. Actually, it's its 8th day open. And we're making it still in our restaurants fresh every day, still served in a cold frosty mug. That has never changed. Folks, we quite literally have 3 or 4 generations of we call them brand fans of the brand. And
of course. Yeah.
And
raving fans. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have 3 or 4 generations of franchisees, and we're very blessed to be able to say that. And this brand has gone through many different iterations, and as it should, being 100 years old. And but what's always kind of remained the same is that connection to, like you said, real Americana food and the root beer, the root beer floats. It's a quality brand. We don't play in like the value menu category. It's just not what we do. We still enjoy a lot of percentage of folks that dine in. And so in a time where some restaurants maybe are looking to shrink their footprint for a lot of reasons, and a lot that makes sense, frankly, financially.
Yeah, right.
We're not. That's not what we want to do, because you just can't serve that frosty mug out of a drive-through window.
That's right. And you're making an interesting point, because when the pandemic hit and whatnot, your franchisees literally kept their dining rooms open to the extent possible. And again, you didn't shrink the footprint, and you continued to make it work. And that's really remarkable, because, so many other restaurants were, 1, forced to close, 2, close their dining rooms, pivot to different business models, all that kind of stuff. Yet A&W stayed tried and true to that original formula. Yeah,
we sure did. And by no account do we believe that our business will ever gravitate to or transition to, 80% dine-in, 20 drive-through. But we will play around that 60, 70% drive-through. Some restaurants, it's actually a pretty big split, actually, dining room and drive-through. But we'll never be a drive-through only or 80, 90% drive-through business. People connect to that mug, and you just can't understate it. And the beverage is very different, from us in-store and in-restaurant experience versus off the shelf in a supermarket. It's a totally different product.
Well, I know you can't give away any trade secrets or recipes, and I certainly won't ask you for that. But what's really interesting is that part of your training for franchisees is obviously teaching them how you recreate an original formula that has been so old and so iconic, and continue to do it, like you say, fresh in the stores each and every day or each and every week, and give people that consistent experience that they've come to remember for decades and multiple generations. It's the same. It's authentic. I mean, that's so rare in this business, to have something that historic that stays the same and people remember it, and their grandkids get the same experience that grandparents had. I mean, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And what's cool too is when we look at the year-over-year numbers with drink incidents in the QSR category, A&W is consecutively 1 and 2 from percentage growth on drink incidents. And we're certainly not the biggest in terms of number of restaurants, and so it's kind of cool. And we attribute that, of course, to the A&W product and. And the menu, which has changed in a lot of different ways, and I'm sure we could talk about that. But it's the brand that has, Roger, as you said, we have been around over 100 years, and from ownership structure to processes and operations, things have changed. However, we believe, and maybe I'm biased, but we've never been in a better position, and it's hard to really be able to say that when you're a brand of our age.
This is so true.
Legacy.
Yeah, I'm a big history buff, and the birth of the automobile in the 1920s and all that kind of stuff obviously opened up the opportunities for your brand to expand, and then the national highway system creation and all that kind of stuff. And people, growing up in a certain area and then traveling parts of the country and still seeing A&W wherever they go and getting that consistent experience. And that's still true to this day. My family sold our restaurants years ago. We moved west. We got an RV and the kids, and we traveled the country. And yes, there are A&Ws along the route, wherever you go. And that's just, maintaining that proud history that you have. So let's talk about what has changed versus what wasn't broken, didn't need to be fixed. I mean, a restaurant has to keep evolving to stay relevant with its customer. But again, you can't fix what isn't broken. You can't take away the tried and true, those iconic things that define the brand. Yet you obviously have an R&D process and new menu items and, limited time offers. All this is part of your business. How much of that does A&W get involved in, and how often does it happen, and what is the R&D process and all that? Let's start there.
Yeah, sure. So we, I think when we get back to kind of what we did on the R&D side and kind of what's been the response, what's responsible for this growth over this past decade specifically. I think the ownership structure, Roger, where we went, 10 years ago, we were owned by Yum Brands.
Yum Brands, of course.
Yep. And so, our franchisees, our largest international franchise partner and our U.S. franchise association came together and bought that brand back from Yum. And so when we say franchise partners, we're quite literally, it's our franchise partners. And that's who we work for. That's who I work for. That's always been sort of my mindset regardless, because that should be every franchisor's mindset.
Yes.
We're there to serve at the pleasure of our franchisee community and grow the brand in a responsible way, et cetera. But in this case, it's actually true. And so that was the first kind of big, rock that we were able to push up the mountain. And then with that became, hey, let's go back to what made us really so great. And that was our freestanding, single brand drive-through restaurants with a nice size dining room, and saw focusing on increasing same store sales first before we look to grow. And so these past 10 years, literally this past decade, we're up over 67% in same store sales.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. And it's not just post-pandemic, it's, pre-pandemic and then pre-pandemic. It's literally 10 years, and so.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it started there with, hey, we're going to look to grow 0 new restaurants. Let's figure out how we drive same store profitable sales growth, not just same store sales growth. And so, and that's where it started. And then it became consistency. Our leadership team on the executive level has been with this brand for many, many years, over 25 years. Our president, our CEO, as you chatted with Kevin, as you said.
I did.
Kevin Basner, and came back to the brand when the franchisees bought the brand back. And with that became that sense of consistency again, a sense of calm. And also knowing that we're not owned by private equity, we're not owned by Wall Street, we're not looking to be sold tomorrow. Our franchise partners put all the money back into the business. And so that allows franchisees to take a deep breath again and start reinvesting in their restaurants, looking to grow again over time. Same store sales are coming up. And it's kind of like the good old days in that way. And so we had some product innovation, as you mentioned, and I'm sorry, I just wanted to set that up.
No, please. Yeah. It's all relevant information. Thanks for sharing.
Sure. And so as same store sales grew, we started looking at menu innovation as well as how best to, like everyone, structure our menu visually. And so we had a major menu revamp. And so with that came, we have a hometown's favorite menu, not to get in the weeds too much, which essentially each restaurant, which makes us unique, is able to put some menu items that's specific to their community. That's, hey, I have to have on the Cape, we're going to have fried lobster, fried clams. It's just going to happen.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You won't see it in Iowa.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you'll see something different in Iowa that you won't see in Massachusetts. So you got your core menu, obviously, which is what people remember that they can get anywhere. But then, that's a critical point because different franchises have different rules about what a franchisee can and cannot do. And some are more open to new ideas and that sort of thing. And others are like, nope, this is the formula. You don't deviate from it. It's got to be rock solid, consistent from one store to the next. And every franchisee, every franchise is a little different. But it's really good to hear that, that you that you open that up to what's important in a community, because I think that adds to your success as well. And I'm sure it definitely pleases your franchisees.
Yeah, it does. And we, we're available and we're very involved with that process. And, we want to be careful with food costs. If we start looking at our hometowns, favorite menu, what happens is it goes outside, most cases might go outside of our traditional, food purchasing co-op. And so that becomes, you got to manage costs and kind of cost engineer it backwards. But yeah, we help out every step of the way with that, and we make sure it works. We apply the right marketing support for it. And with this new menu revamp, we have rearranged our core menu items a little bit, reduced the hometown favorites menu a little bit. And we're just super blessed to be in this position where it's been so well received from our franchise partners and the fans of our brand, quite frankly.
Well, large companies like yours obviously have economies of scale and buying power and all that sort of thing, which obviously gets passed on to the franchisees, which is awesome. But regardless of that, whether you're independent or you're a large company, everyone is still battling the supply chain shortages and suddenly products not available that is a staple on the menu. And if it is available, the price is doubled. And, there's so many domino effects that are happening right now. The labor crisis, how is A&W dealing with all those things? And how do you guide your franchisees through the stormy seas that are still happening right now?
Yeah, absolutely. To say it's still happening, right? To so years later, it's unbelievable, but it is still happening. And so we're also very fortunate and structured in a way that, so we're part of the RSCS. That's the largest, it's Yum's food purchasing co-op. Mm-hmm. Once the brand came back to us and we bought the brand back, our franchisees did from Yum, we maintained that relationship, and that's been pivotal. So a restaurant of our size with, 600 some odd restaurants between freestanding and, co-brand restaurants, because we still have A&W, KFC's A&W and Long John Silver's, and we have some different co-brands. So we're not building new ones, of course, in years. But we're able to buy with the power of over 14,000 restaurants when it comes to chicken and beef and lettuce and restaurant equipment and all of that. So that's really is a big advantage that, quite frankly, folks coming into the system didn't really realize, which I understand. And you're talking about a real difference in profitability. But on top of it, Roger, we're able to take advantage of the learnings and the 6-month crop reports that are out and locking in, dairy prices in 9 months from now, and all the things that if we didn't have that relationship with the RSCS, a brand of our size just couldn't do. We wouldn't have the resources or the money to be able to do that. And so while we've been affected, everybody has, we've certainly fared better than many. And that's, unfortunate. And we mean that. We and any restaurant, as that might struggle, whether it's an A&W or any other brand, any other category. If this is your life like it's ours, it hurts a little. And so, but like I said, we've been blessed and fortunate to do a little better than most. But it's data and it's information, and it's systems, planning, and processes, and that's how we manage it. It's a week by week, day by day basis.
Let's talk about systems, because that's a critical component of any restaurant, obviously. And the guests know when a restaurant or an operation is really dialed versus one that's kind of running by the seat of its pants. And, people are tied to their businesses now more than ever, but the systems are really what allows them to deliver amazing guest service to customers and making sure that the consistency and the products we're serving is there. What systems are in place that are most important, that are really turnkey and easy for new franchisees coming into your system, would you say, into your overall operation?
Sure. So a couple of things. One, we created and started A&W University.
Okay. Awesome.
So that's in Lexington, Kentucky. And that's where our corporate headquarters are. And so we have our company restaurant with the whole classroom set up on the back of that building. And it's funny because when folks go through that, they say, well, we're going to build our restaurant. We want that classroom too. We say, you don't need the classroom. You want to save the money in the real estate, please. But that's typically the first, experience there. But So with that became a full-fledged, robust training program, which it doesn't start and stop after folks come into the system and get into their restaurant. It's ongoing. We retrain managers that can come through the training program from specifically designed 5 days to 10 days, anytime they want at no cost. And so they can come back through our program. So it's ongoing training. You hire a new general manager. Guess what? Send them to AWU. Yep, bring them in. And so we do that. And then, of course, we have a more robust field training team that's out in the stores as folks get open, after they get open, and throughout, they periodically are involved, in addition to our franchise growth leaders. I mean, just our field marketing team, training team. And so those systems were important on the front end. And then things like, I said we make our own root beer. Well, we were able to innovate in the way of the preparation to do it. We were able to cut the time down and have the same consistent product with something as simple as a mixer. You wouldn't believe this, but not too long ago, and there are some restaurants that still may do it, we were mixing our root beer by hand in the big vats with a big stick. And so it's pretty amazing. And we were always kind of like, whoa, we can't mess up this recipe. I don't know about an automatic mixer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is really fascinating to me. I'm envisioning, we've all seen these microbrewery brew pub type places that display the big tanks, and they're actually brewing, whether the guests are there or they're not, the process is going on. How elaborate is the root beer system in an individual location? What's the how long does it take? And, is it really complicated? Is it simpler than one might think? And again, don't give away any trade secrets.
Sure.
It's just fascinating to think about every day. It's like your operators are making this classic product, and they need a certain amount of equipment to do it. And they need to do that process consistently right every single time. And there's refrigeration involved, and there's mixing, like you just said. And tell us about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so I will tell you, it's easier than I thought it was going to be. Now I have a little bit of a ops experience, but not nearly as much.
Sure.
Our team.
Yeah, but you've seen it numerous times, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so it's a little time consuming, but you can make a batch a couple of hours, and you can make it for a couple of days.
How much is made at a time, and to serve how many people, kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I should know that offhand, but I don't know the gallonage. But typically we serve, our batch of root beer that's made is usually a day and a half-ish, and it's made, and then it's made again. You're selling it, and what happens is it gets made, it gets mixed, and then it gets put into essentially a keg system. It gets transported into it.
Right.
It's sealed. It sits. And then it goes into our keg system, and it gets actually poured from a draft arm. It's not a little push button.
Sure. It's real draft root beer. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And that's where it gets poured from. Yeah.
So how does that product vary? Because I know that you can buy A&W root beer in supermarkets and that sort of thing. And obviously it's a carbonated beverage, and it has to be, it has to maintain shelf life and all that kind of stuff. And now it's in a can or a bottle or whatever the process is. But the real draft process happens in the stores, but then something similar happens, but it still tastes the same, or it still gives you that A&W feeling, even though the process has to be slightly different. Yeah.
So I believe that if you draft root beer from our restaurant and a can from a supermarket is so dramatically different, like not even close. And we don't control the can and bottling rights, just so you know. That's not part of our system.
That's right. It's a separate entity. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so I don't. While the recipes are similar, it would just be impossible to duplicate it. And it's just so night and day to taste.
So the real authentic product, you got to get in the store if you want the real authentic product. Well, thanks for sharing that. That was important to clarify.
Yeah.
So we talked about a multiple revenue business model. Can you explain what that means? And I know it's got something to do with the drive-through and the inside dining and all that kind of thing. And obviously there's a marketing component of getting people when it's convenient for them to go through the drive-through, but you also want to get them in the in-dining experience and just keep them in the fold as much as you can. But explain what that concept means. Listen, I'm all about marketing, but believe me, very few marketing ideas today are fully trackable, where you know exactly where the business is coming from, and you also know that it's generating a positive return on your investment. Now, I no longer own restaurants, but if I did, this idea would be at the very top of my marketing plan. It's all about birthdays. Everyone has a birthday, and they are a huge, let me repeat that, huge source of business in your restaurant. Why wouldn't you want to focus in on reaching everyone with a birthday in your area? Well, you can with the Birthday Club from Fan Connect. Best part is they do everything for you. You get a turnkey marketing system that sends birthday cards in advance, inviting people to celebrate at your restaurant from your area code, plus a sign-up strategy for your existing customers. New business, repeat business, higher check averages, and a massive customer database. You can get all this with the Birthday Club. Check it out and sign up now at getfanconnect.com/birthday rockstar.
Yeah, so we want to be accessible and available and serve our customers how they want to be served as best we can. And so we can serve a frosty mug outside the drive-through window, but we can inside. And so we want to provide multiple opportunities for revenue and for customers to be a part of our experience. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we have our dining room platform open. We did switch to our new restaurants are being built with a dual order point, which is very common nowadays, as well as some pull ahead spaces and an escape lane. So we changed our exterior footprint a little bit. Not really as a result of COVID, but not because of COVID. So, at some point our dining rooms were closed because they had to be per the city or county or state.
Sure. Of course. We all went through that. Yep.
Yeah. And so, but with that, of course, became, more drive-through activity. And so we had to kind of think pretty quick out of the box. And so we went to handhelds and we, flipped the technology a little bit and, we try to do third-party ordering. A lot of our customers didn't take to that necessarily, a little more so now, but we're still very much hey, I'm not ordering A&W through a third-party delivery system, not nearly as much as other brands in our category, but we do have that as an option. We also have, again, you can order ahead, and that's something we're implementing now. That online ordering piece, which is
of course, yeah, that's been necessary.
Another revenue.
Okay.
And so we hit all. We call the core four. To dine in, pick up, delivery, drive through.
Have your operations experienced extreme difficulties with the labor crisis, and how are your individual operators dealing with that right now? Are there any ideas that you've come up with that have really helped your operators? Anything innovative, anything, new and exciting that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So we are also really blessed in that we have a lot of franchise owner operators that are in the store a lot. We certainly have large multi-unit operators, 14 restaurants, 15 restaurants. That can't be in every one of those.
Yep, that's right.
But as you know, but the ones that are in their individual stores, they seem to be able to make it work a little easier. But there really wasn't a major secret, Roger, to in the height of it all, to getting, to really getting those extra set of hands in. To the restaurant to help. What we started doing was just talking about ways and trainings on how to expedite the ordering process, the cook line, and still maintain the integrity of the product. We were very transparent with our guests, and we also got a lot of grace, like most folks did during COVID, with a little longer cook to order times. And sorry, we got to close a couple of hours earlier today. We didn't get product yesterday. And, that happened periodically, but again, as such, far less with our brand because of our cooperative relationship. But there really wasn't a magic bullet in terms of the staffing piece. What I'll say is once we started coming out of it, so to speak, and labor, as you look around, it's still a challenge for a lot of places.
It is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I think our social media presence, which we have, remarkably a huge presence on social media, and we're a really fun brand to follow on Instagram and Facebook, and And all of that, has helped us attract talent to our restaurants to work because it's a fun brand to be a part of. And so when we came out of it, we started seeing, I think, I'll tell you some real and kind of, real conversations that we had with our franchisees a couple months ago. We had our quarterly meetings up in the upper Midwest, and we were all together there. And to a franchisee, it was like, things are getting better on the labor piece. Not so bad now for me. I'd like a few more, but that's okay. We just opened up Arnold, Missouri, and we hired, 55 people. And we're going to hire another 20, and we have applications to do it. So I don't know that, we have the magic bullet, but it does help being a brand that people want to work for and being a part of a culture, and from the top to the bottom that, we all march in the same direction. So that's the labor piece.
Let's go back to R&D for a moment.
Sure.
I would guess that you've got a corporate executive chef type guy who comes, or lady that comes up with new menu items from time to time, or these limited time offer kind of things. And what happens then? Upper management sort of tastes the idea and thinks it's going to work and translate across the country. So then you do the marketing focus group thing, and you get your raving fans to come in there to tell you what they think. And if it's a hit, then you roll it out regionally and try it here. And if it's a hit there, then it goes. Is it anything like that, or am I way off base?
So it's a little bit of that and a little bit not of that. And so we don't have an executive chef per se, but what we do have is our R&D team, and we share that in-house as well as through the RSCS. And so when we look at, say, limited time offers, and we're looking out, into Q1 23, right?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I got to think ahead. Yep.
Yeah. And
to roll something out, it's going to take months, of course.
Yeah. And so we look to cost engineer it. We see, well, what's the, if we want to do, say, a bacon promo or a ham promo, we want to look out and say, well, what's the market's going to look like 6 months from now? We want to, again, make sure our franchisees are profitable. So we don't want to give them a LTO that means they're losing 37 cents per transaction. And so once we figure out what we want to do, our Franchise Advisory Council, our NAFA board, National A&W Franchise Association, has a marketing subcommittee that are involved in all these decisions. So quite literally our franchisees. And so we have a test kitchen in our corporate headquarters. We have corporate restaurants. And so we start rolling out, hey, this is what 7 different options. This is what we want to do. Here's the build on it, the job aid. Here's the unit economics. So we've cost engineered the LTO.
Of course.
This is how many cases we'll have to guarantee in our distributor in order to be able to pull off the LTO. And this is our margins. And then quite literally you eat a lot of food for a week and you're like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
Wow, this is really good. It's like, well, we can't have that. It's too expensive. I'm like, why'd you give it to me?
I know, right? Well, of course, the bean counter's got to get involved, and you got to make sure that it's not going to steal profits from something else on the menu and just cannibalize sales of something that makes the individual operator a lot of money. And that's right. A place where a lot of restaurant operators really go wrong. They don't design their menu where everything contributes a similar profit in each category, and the spread sometimes is dollars, and the most popular items seem to be the least profitable. And it's like, okay, I'm filling my seats and I'm wondering why my bank account's not growing. And exactly. That's where large companies really have that dialed right down to the penny, where everything is designed as a system and it's designed to work and maximize guest value, of course, because value is a super important part of the equation, consistency. And again, the profitability just has to be there to give, obviously, the economy a boost and make sure everyone stays in business. That's for sure. We have to lean on, again, we lean on quality because we'll never be a value brand. And product innovation, R&D, for instance, was, our hand-breaded chicken tenders. They're not frozen, they're made fresh, fried to order, breaded and fried to order. That's not all over television because we don't have the marketing budget to do that on the ad side. But it's a stand for quality, and and the individual operators obviously need to tout that because it's a competitive advantage. It's not frozen. It's it is hand breaded and it's natural. Yeah, I mean all that is important. It takes a little longer, and that's where our advisory council and our franchisees and our team is like,
weigh in the little longer versus really good price points. And, and it just works for us. Our cheese curds, again, I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, sorry, but
it's fine. No, tell us.
100% Wisconsin white cheddar made from the same place. And it's just unbelievable. We can get them shipped from here or there, and, but no.
Wisconsin's known for its cheese.
Yeah, sure is. And so things like that, I mean, product innovation, our franchisees have a say in it, and have their taste buds all over it through their advisory council who they vote for.
Well, you're known for your root beer. You're known for your food. You're known for the vibe of the stores, obviously, the iconic brown and orange colors. Yeah. What about service philosophies? Because that's such an important system into itself, delivering what we call hospitality, which is the foundation of this business. That must be, it's all part of the onboarding process. It has to be in each individual store. It goes beyond just hiring good people. It's like they've got to have a real desire to serve the public and to make friends with people and to obviously be a reasoned ambassadors really behind each individual location. Is there any specific staff onboarding training or hospitality ongoing stuff that the franchisees try to obviously maintain within each store, so that consistency and that service and that friendly and the smiles and the thank yous and all that stuff is part of it?
Yeah, so we do. So we have, as part of our onboarding, our training, AWU has modules on soft skills, client-facing behavior, and things like that. And sure. And then it gets drilled into the franchisees, owners, to ultimately to reinforce that with their staff. And they, for the most part, and there are exceptions, they do a pretty good job. And we know that because we get feedback through chat meter and online surveys. And as you know, if someone's not happy, they will let you know.
Absolutely.
And we talk about it. And we use it as not a gotcha, but a, hey, this is an issue, and let's talk through it and how do we get better. And again, I think because, I mean, just that we've been doing it a long time for sure. Right. But I think, where we sit today, it's just so important. Everybody is competitive for every dollar, that any little reason you give someone for not coming back to you or recommending you, shame on us. And so it really sits at the forefront of customer service, and it gets walked from the top down. So we walk the walk, I guess, whether it's in our headquarters or, sports center, restaurant sports center, or if it's in the field with our franchisees or corporate restaurant staff, whatever it is, we have to be that engaging and that available and that accessible as well. And so, we went back to in-person meetings, probably before a lot of people. We went back out to visiting visiting restaurants, getting into the field, having folks into Lexington, interacting, engaging with each other. And there's just something to be said for that face-to-face personal interaction that you can't duplicate, remotely. And so I think all of that speaks to our focus on customer service and great guest experience.
You have to be doing that to achieve the growth numbers that we talked about earlier in the podcast, which very few companies can speak to that kind of consistent growth over time. And that brings to mind a simple concept that every operator, whether it's an individual independent restaurant or it's 5 or 10 units or it's 5,000 units, you got to keep in mind, what is the lifetime value of each and every guest in our restaurants worth over time, and making sure that you continue to build that loyalty, which sort of segues into, do you have any specific loyalty programs that bring people back again and again and create that intense, sense of belonging? I call it affinity. It's like, that's my place. That's where we go. That's where the kids like to go. It's like, we go there a couple times a week and it's our place.
Yeah. And so it's funny, last week we met on a project that's coming out of the ground, and it's exactly that. It's mobile loyalty apps and it's loyalty programs. And each franchisee, various franchisees will do something a little different in each community, and it's not uniform. But we'll go into a standardized POS system, and that's going to allow us to do all of that. And so that's happening kind of as we speak, but that's an important next step for us. But,
sure.
But yeah, we're very, our franchisees tend to be, and our brand tend to be very involved in our communities. We're still doing car shows at a lot of our restaurants.
Oh, I love that. I'm a classic car guy. So fantastic.
Yep. And so we have to be very involved. But yeah, formal loyalty program, mobile loyalty app is coming.
Let's talk about what you look for in potential franchisees that come into the fold. Obviously, people are contacting your company frequently, and you have a certain criteria or qualification set or whatever it is. That's the first step before you decide, okay, this person is worthy of meetings, and we're going to find out if this is a great opportunity and where they're coming from and what their location is. And then, okay, there's a contract timeline where, okay, we agree that this is a fit. We're going to sign a contract. And then what's the timeline before, from signing the contract to getting that store open on opening day? Could you take us through that sort of process, what you look for, qualifications, and then what that timeline looks like to get up and running with the new store?
Yeah. So we believe, Roger, that a franchisor, good franchisor should be able to lead candidates through the process of becoming a good restaurateur, a good franchisee. We kind of feel like if you can't do that and you don't have a robust training and support team, then you're not really a franchisor. You're just allowing folks to sell your products and market your brand. And so when we say, well, what do we look for? My point is you don't necessarily need to have restaurant experience to be a franchisee of ours. What we like to see is that you have some sort of, management experience, maybe that you've led people. As importantly, you have the ability to want to be part of a system and have of course, the financial wherewithal. That's important.
It is for sure.
Yep. Yes. And then we do look for folks who maybe want to be the financial arm, but then they'll have an operating partner. And if that's the case, we'll ask that partner to be, on the agreement when we can for a small sweat equity percentage. But the operating structure is very important to us. How's that restaurant going to operate? How are you going to be profitable? Not just, ring the register. So we try to sort through all of that at the front end. We have a pretty robust discovery day process and due diligence process. Our NAFA board get involved as needed, as would any one of our executives. Oftentimes we'll talk with candidates on the front end, a little unique, but we think it's important. So, from that perspective, that's the key, that they have good social skills, that they, have led a team, have hired people, or have worked at, have some sort of business background. They get it from a numbers perspective. Doesn't matter if it's burgers or, you name it, baseball bats. I don't know. So that's kind of the basis of what we look for. And then it's up to us, really. We take the onus in saying, hey, set these folks up to be successful. So sorry. Yeah.
No. Is there an average amount of time from literally contract to opening?
Yeah. Sorry. So from
no worries.
First call with our team to executing a franchise agreement is typically on average, it's about 120 days ish. And a lot of that is the due diligence in between. And so once that happens, it becomes, hey, let's find a location. So that's two different conversations. From securing a location, that time can vary from, a few months to a year sometimes.
Your team will obviously engage and go to that town, community, whatever, and help them assess different locations. And based on traffic studies and based on past experience and knowledge, you'll say this one's better than that one. And, and do you help negotiate leases and do all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we do. So my team, and that's how we're a little different. And so we're on the floor. We head up new development, sort of sales process, and also real estate from A to Z, as well as franchisee financing. We don't lend, but we help folks coordinate the right financing option. But yeah, we negotiate leases. We help negotiate leases. We procure sites. We put them through our real estate committee. We have a large investment in a couple of different real estate analytics platforms. We have a robust network of real estate brokers. We don't think we need a lot. We need the right ones in the right places.
Of course.
That's how we maintain those relationships. So literally, if someone came in and said, hey, I've led people before, I've always been interested in food, I want to learn, they have the financial wherewithal, they can come in, we can train them, teach them how to do it, help them find a location, get them into the right financial structure. And that's the other piece of it. If it's not if they're going to be looking at a bucket of debt service to where they're negative EBITDA, on our average unit volume right now is over 1.2 million. Well, then that doesn't make sense, right? I mean, we're not going to let you do that. And so, so we're very involved every step of the way with someone. We hold their hand right through closing on the property and frankly, even the design and construction process. We have in-house architect and engineer folks, project coordinators that we, sign off on all renderings, of course, but we're also involved with weekly calls for every single project that's on the board. We have a weekly call with the GC, the architect, and the franchisee, and go over every detail of that project.
Standardized decor, of course, right down to the seating and the booths and the colors and all that kind of stuff, right? The signage, like everything is all standardized across. And, you decide together, this is going to go here and that's going to go there. And there's table layouts designed for efficiency and all that kind of stuff is dialed in. And then they place the order and then it shows up, it gets installed by your in-house GC guy and bang, then you're ready for your grand opening.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they'll hire their GC, but they'll work with us to make sure that, they're on track and everything is standardized for sure. We are a little flexible with like conversion opportunities, where we have to be. And that's what makes us a little different too. For instance, our new location that opened in Arnold, Missouri was a conversion, and we put on 3 really big garage doors. And so the side slides up.
Cool idea.
You have access into the restaurant and large outside patio seating, and we had the space to do it. So we got a little creative. And it's been, again, it's only 8 days, but folks are loving that feature to it. And, it also provides an outdoor element. If we have a pandemic and you can't have indoor seating, you do have exterior seating, you can open up your restaurant. And so that won't be the norm, Roger, but that's an example of how we can get a little creative when we have to and where it makes sense financially. If we had to tear down cement pillars to do it, we would have said that doesn't make sense.
Fantastic. I love how everything is just so systemized, so dialed in, so efficient, right down to the cost of a drinking straw, and it's all done for you. All you have to do is be willing and open to learn, maintain that consistency, follow all the legalities, because I'm sure that contracts are obviously, you paid a lot of money for legal fees to make all that right. It brings to mind that movie, The Founder, about Ray Kroc, that always makes me laugh because in the early days of when he's trying to get McDonald's off the ground, he'd visit his different franchisees and stuff. And some of them are doing fried chicken. And it's like, what are you doing? And it's like, some people think there's always going to be somebody who thinks they got a better way of doing something, even though this is tried and true for 100 years. And I'm sure there are stories of, you got the team players and then you got the people that are like, oh, let's try this and let's try that. It's just funny. But franchising really should be all about standardized and systems and consistency across the board. That's great. Do you ever secret shop the stores? I mean, do you show up after the fact? They've been in business a year or so and you just sort of show up and make sure you put your guest hat on and you walk through the door, maybe unannounced, like, and say, what about this? And what about that? And it's like, we don't, we show up for sure. Okay. Yeah.
But it's no gotcha. But we do show up for sure. We don't secret shop.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, John, it's been terrific talking to you. How can people, if obviously the whole point of this is people are always looking for new opportunities, and we do have a restaurant audience, and some people may be running successful independent restaurants in our audience, and they're always looking for the next thing. And this is clearly an operation that's been around so long, and you can have confidence and trust in the fact that it's always going to be around, and that the support you clearly brought to us that tells us exactly what support is offered. How can people, reach out to you or find out more about the franchise opportunity?
Yeah, thank you, Roger. Yeah, so folks could go to awfranchising.com. Also, I'm certainly available directly at jpalumbo@awrestaurants.com with an S. And we love to talk A&W. We love to talk franchising. It may not be the right time, Roger, right now for someone, but it might be the right time in a year from now.
Exactly. Timing is everything. And this may plant a seed, and people always go back to our old episodes and something triggers a thought, and you never know. And our goal obviously is to continue to serve the industry and give back and provide as much information as we can to help operators run stronger businesses. So thank you so much for being a great guest on the podcast.
Thank you, Roger. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. That was the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. We'll see everyone in the next episode. Please stay well. Take care. Thank you so much, John, for sharing all your insights and knowledge on A&W, the franchise opportunity, and current pain points that restaurants are facing, and necessary technology and marketing and loyalty programs, and so much more. We had so much to learn from you, so thanks for being with us. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. Can't wait to see you next time. Listen, I am a huge believer that service is your restaurant's greatest competitive advantage. But we all know that service takes time and commitment, dedication. Well, what if there was a training tool, a single tool that was completely customized to your restaurant brand, your menu? Let's start with photos of the plate presentations, ingredients, romance notes, allergens, everything that's important that your staff need to know to present and bring to life your menus for your guests. That includes your wine and beer list, specialty cocktails, everything at their fingertips. Imagine in the back of house that cooks, your new prep cooks or anyone can instantly look at the photos, a list of ingredients with prep times and cooking steps, all the important things to produce each dish to perfection. Imagine there's also table layouts of every dining space in your restaurant with table numbers and even seat numbers, because we all know how important it is to deliver the right dish to the right guest. This is a tool designed to enhance hospitality in your restaurant, not replace it. Learn more at servenow.com. That's SRVNOW.com. Check it out.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars Podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.